I want to tell you about the Bible, the fastest summary of the Bible. A through Z is an algebraic equation about how we think, about logic. It's about the identity of infinity. It's about the identity of three natures of zero at once. Invisible but still discernible with the value of letters A through Y distinctly and non-distinctly with values A through Z. And this is the difference between positive or negative. The reason we are positive, temporary negative, is so everything stays in demonstration of itself. See, Earth has a simultaneously distinct and non-distinct value/value nature relationship to the complete value progression, value in its nature's progression that is perfect, that is in generation of an as all things at once, tied to an as all things at once. So the value is to the bond of matter. What is active? So body of value discernment, simultaneous and progressive value at once. And then this is further positive or negative in demonstration. This is what the five pillars. This is what the Trinity. This is what juxtaposing. That's about in relationship to a nature of organized crime that forced our species into an identity of negative value nature progression. Leth of Hades. So instead of the value, the value is only temporary, the bond to matter. But it's of temporary / lasting increasing value while here. Because now we're in the active phase. And with the value of that bond to matter, and with the value of that progression bond, as what is to the contribution of a volume of as our volume is positive or negative in relationship to this identity's value nature system. Not these ones that modern nations are in and as identities of the law. Identities of positive, defending that needing to offensively, especially when and how trained to. Campus Martius criminally re-engineered. So we're going into space. Excuse my hair. I cut it myself. I thought it would be easier. We're going into space with the bond, as the value of the bond, Leth of Hades. That value of that bond here, simultaneously, distinctly, and non-distinctly, as Earth's value. We have each of the sciences offensively with physical delusions, but also with space maintained, identity of relationship to itself, and to it as the value of the ground, positive, per this science, which a little kid could have the correlation, understanding that it's not about economics, why we're stuck in a denatured from colonization, a whole bunch of nations stuck here. They got people, maybe he's American, but he's like with the culture talking they have in the news all the time. Little like insidious nature positives and convictions lying to people about what politics are, about what the Civil War was about. Civil War is about how George Washington is valued, and he cannot tell a lie. He chopped down the fake branches in Connecticut right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War in the North, leaving slavery. Sickly, distinctly, and just to be non-distinctly and undiscerned what they were doing. Where and how, where our fact-cheating natures. Now that our nations are mixed, the difference is value to correlation nature. It's the identity of discernment nature. The complete nature. To admit this is to discern is the nature. It is science of correlation. So we're going into space. The value of a bond, even though it's temporary, that temporary bond has a relationship to and at the same time is the same identity of value's relationship to itself in relationship to our active body of value discernment. So we have criminal insidiousness nature made in semi-ancient times, and it fit all modern nations to roles with this. So Little Rap Guy and Friends is about this. You see the one episode where Little Rap Guys and Friends, Little Rap Guy's making a counter criminal enterprise. So everyone in the narrative, he saves them. That's why he had to force them into that, because he knew they were going to get caught. Because in the story of Little Rap Guy and Friends, years ago, Little Rap Guy, he's from a suburb, and he went to the city, neighboring city, and from boxing and things like that. He started talking with the black people about how to overcome, and they thought about reparations and stuff like that. But then they made an anti-archetypal criminal enterprise, which is what modern religions did, because criminal fact treatment nature was already criminally foreign influenced. It's already degraded from what will only stay positive volume increase from that point, or we'll get forced away from here, Leith of Hadith, in demonstration that we're not per its science, which values the bond, what is active body value discernment and progressive at the same time. So bring us back from space. Blood clots. Leith of Hadith. Forget about it. There was only me. All we could do all kinds of things by just admitting this, because then we take away the legal impositions on presidents and on courts and on the nature of the police at the same time. If we can admit our system's broke, everyone's not forced to a quality of fact treatment nature as recorded, invested, criminally foreign influenced and delusion wrought intersciences, victim predators needing to react, trained and forced and persuaded to react as reactions needed to blame others, themselves, and other things for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, which is this nature's relationship to itself, which nature is identity. That's why identity nature is what describes what is each sequence nature of our body at the same time as its own. It's complete identity. Each complete cell has an identity. It's also a semi-nature in relationship to this. Not identity's hierarchy, but the nature of volumes. But this nature of volume, Trinity, relationship to itself, which is 5 pillars of Islam are always also about this. But even the people of Islam and of the Old Testament, New Testament, all the different religions that aren't understanding, because the sciences were criminally re-engineered. Yin Yang is juxtaposed with not just with to teach zero, but value omega. Simultaneously, alpha and omega, left to right. Simultaneously, yin yang, left to right. Left to right first. Feminine first, yin yang, alpha first. It's not one or the other that is positive. It is their simultaneous relationship to this identity of progression's relationship to itself, even though and while we're inside of it, which will always be. Our complete nature is a semi-nature relationship to this thing will only be and stay simultaneously, distinctly and non-distinctly, the same exact way. Perfect value progression. As perfect values nature's progression. As a phenomenon with effects. As it affects nature with our nature of volume. So we have criminally foreign influenced, criminal and citizen's nature branches that you can't legalize without causing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, not by accident, fact, treatment nature, invested to account can't counter that and speculate and they're not fear per the nature of investments forced, the nature quality of law forced, internature types of law, parted, not by accident. Originally, still, our founders want us to demonstrate this about the Constitution and Bridge types of laws. This juxtaposed more than 99.9% of the crimes demonstrably with what put those crazy laws with color. That was color agencies, too, to force the quality of fact treatment nature perpetually through other motivations, victim predator reactions, blaming others and other things themselves for defenses of those convictions, of those opinions. And that's in collusion with the crime method maintaining the wrong outcomes in courts, one-way reports. And as that lifts, the more and more it was measured pseudo-sophistication contained. Each modern nation's in an identity of negative value nature progression. Leith of Hadith, our value as a volume of, instead of bringing it being the relationship to its complete nature that makes evolution here, we'll read the Santa Claus. So we have to be finite, the value of the bond to the finite, then the finite, then the smallest thing. We have to be the value, that's value simultaneously to body of value discernment, which is inseparable from all things. They're dividing because they knew they engineered every one of the roles, negative value nature progressions, blaming the causes on other things, others themselves, as lie progressions to all databases, formally, in collusion with overt criminal enterprises, maintained methodically, also with juxtaposed with unrealized ones, and all that social and family with that maintained to and as all spots, all states and areas of and as each modern nation, criminally foreign influence, delusions wrought, and valuing that as nature's or positive roles, as sensibilities roles, that can't keep valuing that, while valuing that as that, can't counter the nature of criminal insidiousness as fluent through our nations non-distinctly. It was originally and still, since semi-ancient times, sickly, non-distinctly hurting each modern nation to keep each area and state of each modern nation invested, blaming others and other things and selves for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, of mass criminal insidiousness nature, of positive theater positives, not letting free speech of equality to demonstrate original and still intersciences delusion, physical delusions, criminal foreign influences, criminal uses of lawyers to leave database solution stacking rackets, identity theft rackets, just by defending that and how they say they're only about one type of law. You can't how you can't report how mandated law was not let follow, how there's forcing child abuses of each age of factory nature, intercampuses, how that was maintained, motivated. All that's recorded. They offensively interbranch, forge names, switch names. They have drug crime rolls with other nations here. Fake news crime acts with this. WFSB, Fox CT, rolls with Russians with this. Crimes with psychology. They're forging names, switching names together. They make statements to someone and walk away. You never have no communications. Forging names. So then they're using wire crimes. If you try to call and report things, they'll make things up, pretend things are recorded because they're caught. With a principal sex offender, they got that would have got away with it with them if it didn't call other than that. And there's still more they hid originally and with that, and still by pretending harassment by calling, because then they start calling back when you try to report a crime acts, and then they pretend they don't know what they're doing this, and they pretend they're making mistakes. Then they charge me with harassment for calling back each time. I tried to report what was already recorded sex crime acts with the kids, still hid then and now. To parents, they use fake news. They use people tied to a Fred Grisey recorded criminally involved with a Leahy family and with other men and women interbranch, intercampuses with identity theft, drug crimes rolls with kids and stuff like that. Offensive evidence reception crime rolls, identity theft crime rolls, people sequence shifting crime rolls. I never had anything to do with Rick Shamfino the entire time he was in my high school. This is recorded. Also, a, a Harris kid facilitated also with a who used to be had a girlfriend who was a daughter of a different principal involved with as a victim, but as victim predators used by as sensibilities led by interbranch criminal uses of them, and with further with CCSU with many from my Italian used criminally for but they're attaching everyone to fake relationships to each other, fake they're as victim predator reactions, needing to hide behind titles, needing to pretend needing to have the fights out here because there were lie progressions tied to crimes and cases already. All kinds of bad things against everyone originally still. The same way they were motivated to it originally still, that's recorded too. It's not just Russians against Russians and against Americans with our own fake sides. All kinds of natures of elections, crimes juxtaposed. The FBI's recorded raised as victim predator Oz. Originally still criminally foreign influence. George Washington can tell no lies. That means he chopped down the fake branches in Connecticut right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War with the French general's help. But he had to leave overt slavery because it was entrenched by a whole bunch of nations that were forcing them not to talk about each other. And to that was so much sick missed, not by accident, so they could keep what was non-distinctly bonding all as propagated criminally foreign influence delusions wrought, invested valuing that. All positions of sophistication. Possessing needs to hide lie progressions. Nature's needed to keep correlations. Nature's trinity hurt. The trinity that is value bonds of the bond of active body of value discernment, progressive value discernment at the same time. I just remind. So come back from space. Because that bond of value here, the only reason it's temporary / lasting nature is because that's how the perfect course works in demonstration of its identity and identity of relationship to itself. And that's what makes and keeps our identity nature as more and more volume of positive or negative value nature. Forever nature as identity. Identity is a forever nature. The Trinity is an increasing nature of volume per the identity of perfect value progression that generated space, that generated physical space, the bond to matter in the first place. Before there was matter, it had to be generated. This identity of value progression is the course of pantheism, of science, of this in demonstration to our volume as a species and as Earth, simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, as value, positive or negative, the difference between us and the rest of Earth, with and see, but now we are, which is criminal foreign influences since semi-ancient times, specifically to cause negative value nature progressions and demonstration of it. Ground has an identity. Is the identity of the bond, and it is inseparable from every body of value discernment. What caused more than 99.9% of the crimes was not just conscious, it was knowing that it was going to make and hold a whole bunch of liars and lie means to needs and natures to keep perpetually getting away with it, to keep everyone invested as an abridged fact treatment nature, as an abridged constitution, defenses, pseudo patriotism nature, sacrifices to other people's thoughts. Left, intersciences, then interbranch, then intersciences again, off campuses, then on off campuses, database illusion stacking, fact treatment nature racket rolls, identity theft racket rolls, sequence shift nature racket rolls, ill convictions that came hurt convictions only let realized, torture, forced invested reactions to the nature of things, forced to only let realize unfold, let value told. I'll tell no lies. CT2. So George Washington's value when he tells no lies. This is about an organized crime. That's why he had to chop down the fake branches but still leave them up. That's how we have people, foreign and domestic, making like Russians who are against Russians and Americans who are against Americans as agencies roles, motivated to pretend to and need to hate each other with fact treatment nature, with demonstration. For all that manifest there and here, they're doing criminal against themselves and us. With shared ill criminal justice systems, other nations criminally involved with the Town Line Drive Mobile. All spots tied to criminal uses of the police department, natures and methods of child abuses that are keeping it just too uncomfortable to counter what they're demonstrating. Don't mess with this. From off campuses, adapting because they're forcing people to react, fact treatment nature wise, sequence treatment names of others wise, with illusions fit in the youngest grades, per crime method that everyone missed, even the people with roles of it. This is how they're keeping non-distinctly each modern nation in this trap. Like just one rat.